early in the morning.
Hey everybody, it's Doug Green and I'm the publisher of Technology Reseller News. We're live here at Cloud Connections in Delray Beach, Cloud Communications Alliance Technology Reseller News podcast. And I'm very pleased to have with me Mark Vange of Autom8ly. Mark, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Doug. Always a pleasure.
So we're going to be the talk of the town here this week at this show, of course, has been AI. We also have been talking about VCons. We've been talking about conversations. And also the return of voice is a central part of our lives. And part of that picture is AI voice agents. And Mark, I guess that's what we're going to talk about right now.
Yes, sir.
All right. So before we dive into that, what is Autom8ly?
So Autom8ly is a company that creates AI solutions. Our go-to-market strategy primarily is to work with partners, service providers, folks who really understand specific use cases, who have customers that have very specific and often complex needs, and we build those solutions and then we go to market with our partners.
Now, your company basically offers AI voice agents.
Correct. That is definitely one of the verticals in which we operate and that we have a solution in, with a focus on specific and complex use cases. As I said, there's no shortage of folks who will offer you voice reception or appointment setting. And that's great, and there's obviously lots of use cases for that. But we focus more on verticals where there's a lot of complexity, compliance, those kinds of broader issues.
So let's dive into this. Now, you said before we began that you focus on the collections market. Is that right?
That is definitely one of the verticals in which we're operating.
Okay.
And we are basically in the process of launching our first live customer in that vertical after months and months and months of work and testing and figuring things out with them. So we're very excited, and we are definitely looking forward to working with them and others in their vertical.
Now, is there an advantage to using an AI agent, an AI voice agent in the world of collections over a human agent? Or are you looking for a hybrid blend?
We're definitely looking for a hybrid, but early indications are actually very interesting that in some cases, it seems people are less combative when contacted by an AI.
Right.
When I call you and tell you that you owe somebody money, there's a natural defensiveness that comes up that
sort of humiliating.
It is humiliating. Right?
Yeah.
When an AI calls you and tells you that you owe somebody money, it's more like getting a letter, less like being confronted by somebody.
It's just a machine.
Exactly. So the jury is still out. We don't have great numbers yet, but that's one of the things we're tracking actually, is whether doing those calls specifically by AI actually produces better results.
Right.
Bigger picture though, there are different kinds of collections calls in terms of complexity, in terms of the age of the debt, the size of the debt, the nature of the person who owes the debt. There are people who've just forgotten and all they really need is somebody to, talk to register their payment.
Right.
And then there are people who have very complex situations or owe very large sums, right? So what our partner is doing is essentially taking the more complex cases and allowing their staff to focus on those, and then sending the more routine, more mundane calls, which are lower value, to the AI. And of course, the AI can always redirect callers to the human operaters if there's any complexity or if anything comes up.
I'm just thinking, I bet we've all been there in healthcare. I'm thinking, if you have an incident, you get a variety of mailed, sometimes actually USPS mailed invoices, and it comes to the house. No one knows if this $86 thing was paid or not, right? I'm guessing the low-hanging fruit is what you're talking about. Someone doesn't even know that that never got paid.
Absolutely.
It's a one-time payment and no one paid it.
Exactly. And so now this agent is able to contact them and negotiate payment terms, take payment over the phone, all of that stuff.
Or a park city collecting money on parking. These sort of, they're not in your life all the time, right?
Exactly.
So then that's got to be a lot, right? That's got to be a large number of sort of small number transactions. So then, meanwhile, you're saying, you know, the larger, you know, someone owing, you know, thousands of dollars maybe, and like you said, more, they've got a story,
Correct.
right? That's got to be worked out. Now, how far can the agent go? How far can the AI agent go in terms of complexity?
The agent will go all the way. What the agent will not touch are the red lines, right? So if somebody is in collections and they engage a lawyer, right, that's a red line.
Right.
The collections company can't call anymore.
Right.
If somebody has a a complex scenario where it's a payment related to a home that they no longer live in, divorce, settlement,
Right. I don't own the car anymore.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, actually, I don't own the car. I'm not sure it really is an escape valve. But there definitely are complexities where
Right.
with court orders and those kinds of things where even the human agent would basically pass it off.
Right. In other words, there's
for
now
compliance.
you're talking about, so that sounds like there's also two buckets. The person that's not disputing that actually, yeah, I got a parking ticket, versus we don't even know if the money's actually owed or who
Right.
owes it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
The AI will only go as far as saying, this was the address of service, this was when the invoice was issued, those kinds of mundane facts.
Right.
It's not going to try to convince you that this is actually something that you do owe, or again, there are boundaries, but also that is the preponderance of calls.
Mark, how about effectiveness for the clients? Are you literally collecting more money this way?
So we are still measuring that. Let's call it. This is the early days.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, it certainly seems like we are collecting very successfully. And one of the big challenges actually was figuring out how to do the collections in a PCI compliant way. Right. So there are a few challenges in this particular vertical. One of them is dealing with all of the rules and red lines around what collections people can say to the debtors. The other one is how to deal with the payment and kind of all the red lines around PCI and compliance, and how do you build a process so that the credit card information doesn't get sent to the LLM that you're building the conversation with, and all of that stuff. So we have a whole process around that to make sure that everything stays safe and compliant for our customers and for the people who they are calling.
I was trying to think of how to frame this question. I don't want to ask, does it save money? Because that's sort of let me ask it a different way. Does it actually reduce the cost per dollar collected? The amount of money I got, how many dollars I got to spend to collect each $100 increment or something like that. Is that something that AI agents achieve?
Absolutely. So when you have human agents, there's a fair bit of complexity around managing them.
Right.
It can be a fairly transient workforce, especially for these high complexity calls. There's a lot of training involved. And they sit there and they dial in, as fewer and fewer people answer the phone.
Yeah.
And so, I've seen numbers as low as 28% effective utilization of agents' time. So literally they're spending 3/4 of their time not talking on the phone.
Right.
Between breaks, the bathroom, lunch, waiting for someone to pick up the phone, all of that stuff. With an AI solution, you literally only pay for the talking AI. And so even if it were donuts to donuts, it would still be more cost effective because the utilization is 100% versus 28% or 75% at the highest. So just on that basis alone, it's more cost effective. It also reduces some of the overhead. So when you have human agents, you then need to have supervisors in particular in high compliance environments. You have a ratio of perhaps as high as 1:5 or 1:8 of supervisors that are listening in on the calls to make sure that the agents are staying compliant. And so all of that complexity and all that overhead also goes away. So there's definitely a cost improvement. It also means that you can place a lot more calls more quickly. So your time to revenue is quicker, right?
Yeah.
You can't hire 1,000 people for one day, but if you have an influx of calls to make, like at the beginning of the month, for example, we can just fire a lot of calls all at once without having to hire a whole bunch of people all at once.
So is this an MSP or channel partner opportunity?
I think it absolutely is. And there is a variety of use cases that are what I call, high value voice. I'll give you an example of one that we did here in South Florida with a partner of ours who's, an MSP basically. And we worked with their customer who is a hospital chain down here in South Florida. And they have a very large Haitian population that they serve.
Mhm.
And there's just not enough people
Right.
in the hospital who speak Haitian Creole. So we actually built an AI agent that speaks Haitian Creole, which is not something you'd get from OpenAI or 11 Labs, in order to be able to serve those populations better for this hospital chain.
And let's stay on that, because language isn't just about, knowing the Haitian word for dog or cat or something like that. It's also about culture, right? There's mannerisms and speaking styles and so on. Do AI agents actually match that need?
AI agents are absolutely built to emulate human conversation, whether in GPT, text, or whether in voice. And part of the model that we build and part of the prompting that we create does instruct it on how to converse and what kind of words to use. We'll go as far as talking about what level of literacy to assume,
Right.
and so on. So we can do a better job of that where we have a lot of data. So that's probably more true in English than it is in Haitian
Right.
Creole. But yes, certainly the goal is to be as conversational as possible.
I was just thinking, I know I don't want to push the bounds of where we are, but in some languages, there's all this issue of formalism, and some words are gender related, and there's cultural sensitivities
Sure.
that probably would make that conversation more successful.
Absolutely. And some of it is also a matter of keeping it in perspective. This is the example I always give. You may not love the idea of talking to an AI, but if your flight was just canceled and there's 300 other people and your choice is talk to an AI,
right,
that's 95% conversant, versus wait for an hour in the line with everybody else whose flight just got canceled, right, that seems like a pretty easy choice. Here it's similar, although of course we strive for the most conversational AI possible. For an edge case like the Haitian Creole bot, it may not be as good as our English speaking bot, but also it's solving a real need for somebody to get medical help.
Yeah.
And so it just seems to be a good trade-off.
And let me return to the issue of opportunity. This sounds like for MSPs and channel partners out there that are in communities where there's underserved communities, there's lots of languages being spoken. The hospital example's a fine example. Hospitals have to serve everybody. So it's very possible that lots of organizations in that community, utility companies and so on, are going to have exposure to communities where they're not talking to them because they just don't speak the language of the people that they're serving.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, there are calls that are complex in nature that rely on connection with complex infrastructure. Hospital
Right.
scheduling, related to filling out admission forms, those kinds of things, customer onboarding, filling out business loan applications, right? The list is endless. It's really just a matter of when you hit a situation where one of the standard kind of mass market voice agents won't do, that's when you should call Autom8ly.
All right. Well, on that note, Mark, I really want to thank you for taking time out here at a really busy Friday morning here at this conference. Where can we learn more about Autom8ly?
The best place is autom8ly.com, or find me on the internet. I'm the only Mark Vange out there.
Mr. Mark Vange, Autom8ly. Take a look. Great opportunity, great ideas. Mark, I'm looking forward to our next occasion, but thank you very much.
Thanks again.